35 ironworkers die at work each year. 2,200 workdays are lost every year due to injuries. Steel erection can be a dangerous business. Today we'll help you recognize hazards and work safely. The topics covered in this video will help protect you and your family from the tragic effects of a serious injury. Please, listen carefully. This video will help you work safely. But up on the structure, only you can make the right decisions. One of the most dangerous aspects of our work is the fact that most of it is performed above the ground, sometimes hundreds of feet in the air. We'd like to help you understand what the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, requirements are for fall protection during steel erection. These laws were revised in 2002 for the first time since the beginning of OSHA in 1970. We'll show you how to erect, inspect, maintain, and disassemble a variety of fall arrest systems that can be used to protect you and your co-workers. Remember that none of the training provided or the systems we show in this video will work if you don't use them and use them properly. Our goal is to help you perform your job safely and effectively. Now let's get started. First, let's go over the OSHA requirements for fall protection during steel erection. In addition to the typical duties ironworkers perform, like connecting and bolting up, the OSHA Steel Erection Standard covers other activities, including moving from point to point while performing this work. The OSHA standard states that as an ironworker, you must be protected from falls by use of guardrail systems, safety net systems, personal fall arrest systems, positioning device systems, or fall restraint systems. We'll discuss each of these systems in more detail in a few moments. The OSHA standard requires all ironworkers who are engaged in steel erection to be protected from falls when they're on a working or walking surface with an unprotected side or edge of more than 15 feet above a lower level. Some examples include beams, bridge joists, floors, or roof areas with unprotected sides and bridges. So above 15 feet, fall protection is required. There are two exceptions to this rule, one for connectors and one for ironworkers installing metal floor or roof deck in a controlled decking zone. We'll talk more about a controlled decking zone in a few minutes. OSHA requires that connectors must be protected from fall hazards of more than 2 stories or 30 feet, whichever is less. Connectors must also receive special training. It's a good idea to review the SIA video on connecting as well. Now, when connectors are working at heights between 15 feet and 30 feet and are not prevented from falling by a guardrail system, they must be provided with a personal fall arrest system, positioning device, or fall restraint system. And they have to be able to tie off at any time. This means that adequate anchorage points and tie-off equipment must be in place and available for immediate use. It's recommended that connectors tie off in these areas unless tying off creates a greater hazard. Don't take this decision lightly. Your life could be at stake. You should always discuss tie-off requirements and considerations in these areas with your supervisor. They may have to explain why you weren't tied off if you fall. Now, if connectors are exposed to fall hazards of more than 2 floors or 30 feet, whichever is less, they must be protected from falls at all times. So let me say it again. If you're not connecting or installing metal deck in a controlled decking zone, then you must be protected from falls of more than 15 feet. However, you should also be aware that some state-run OSHA plans may require employees to be protected at heights of less than the 15 or 30-foot requirements of federal OSHA. Also, some companies and some job sites require fall protection at heights exceeding 6 feet. It's your responsibility to know the fall protection requirements for your company, specific site requirements and laws in the area where you're working. If you have any questions about these requirements, you should ask your supervisor. Fall hazards may be present before steel or other material is even erected. For instance, crane and equipment operators should always maintain 3 points of contact when getting on and off cranes and other equipment. Access should be made at the appropriate points on equipment. Cranes and other equipment may also have oil and grease on surfaces that can cause slips and falls. The operators should also inspect handholds and catwalks to prevent failure and a possible fall. When material arrives on site, it needs to be unloaded. Always maintain 3 points of contact to get on and off the trailers. If a secured and stable ladder can be used to gain access, use it. Don't jump on and off trailers unless you're in peril. Serious injuries can and do occur from getting on and off trailers improperly. Also, be cautious and observe the way trailers have been loaded. Watch for loads that may have shifted during transit. When the chains or straps are removed, the load may further shift and material could fall. Loads can also shift once the unloading process starts, so you must be continually aware of the stability of the load and the various pieces as you unload it. Also, be aware of the condition of trailer decks while unloading and once you've finished unloading. Trailer decks may have holes, rotten decks, or other hazards that could cause falls and other injuries. Now that material is on site and unloaded, the erection process can start. Let's move on to the structure and identify the common fall hazards found above the ground. All surfaces may present a slip hazard, but painted or coated beams can be especially dangerous. Metal floor and roof deck can also be slippery under certain conditions. Beams and joists can be narrow as well, adding to the potential for lost footing. Any of these surfaces can be affected by moisture, temperature, and the types and condition of footwear you have on. Double-check surface conditions before climbing the iron. And remember, always wear the appropriate boots and make sure they are free of mud, oil, grease, or other contamination that could cause you to slip and fall. Unsecured deck also has the potential to slip and lose bearing. Ensure that all decking has proper and adequate bearing before you walk on it. This can mean that where possible, decking should be laid across at least 3 joists. When walking on unsecured deck, take up and down marching steps while walking on untacked deck. Don't shuffle. Another thing, watch out for extra fasteners such as bolts that were left on beams or joists. Stepping on them could easily result in a fall, or the fasteners might hit someone working below. If you find these items, pick them up and put them in your bolt bag. This will help protect you and your co-workers. You should also be aware of several tripping hazards that can exist anywhere on the job site, including the steel structure. Reinforcing bars, shear studs, and other anchors are all potential tripping hazards. Vertical bars and conduits can be impalement hazards as well. Since many times these can't be removed, it's important to barricade the area around or above them. Otherwise, you should provide covers and high visibility markings to warn your co-workers of their presence. Welding cables, lifelines, and power cables may be lying on the surface of the deck. These are all potential tripping hazards. Try to keep them out of walkways wherever possible. Also, remember not to pull or jerk on welding leads. If they suddenly come apart at connections, you could lose your balance and fall. Stair pans are frequently an issue on job sites. Once stairs are installed, they need to be poured immediately, or the pans need to be temporarily filled using wood or some other substantial material. Simply blocking off the top and bottom of the stairs is not always effective, especially with limited access throughout the building. Lines and cables need to be kept out of the stairways if possible. Remember, a slip or trip can turn out to be more than just falling to the surface of the level you're walking on. Depending on the situation, you could fall a long way.
Let's review the important points we've covered so far. The OSHA standard requires all ironworkers to be protected from falls more than 15 feet above a lower level. There are two exceptions. One is for connectors, the other is for ironworkers installing metal deck in a CDZ. Connectors must be protected from falls of more than 2 stories or 30 feet, whichever is less, and must receive special training. Between 15 and 30 feet, connectors must be provided with some type of fall protection system. This could be guardrails where possible, a personal fall arrest system, or a fall restraint system. And they have to be able to tie off at any time. Now that means some type of system must be in place and available for immediate use. Remember that some job sites may require fall protection at lower heights.
It's your responsibility to know the fall protection requirements for your company, specific site requirements and laws in the area where you're working. If you have any questions about these requirements, you should ask your supervisor.
Next, we identified potential hazards that might exist on a job site. Ground hazards included access to cranes, truck trailers, shifting loads, and the unloading process. Up on the structure, we looked at slipping hazards such as coated beams, metal deck, and leftover fasteners. Remember, deck can be both slippery and unsecured. Make sure you check that all deck has proper and adequate bearing before you walk on it. Tripping hazards also present a potential danger to ironworkers. Watch out for reinforcing bars, shear studs, and other anchors. Cover or mark them. Welding cables, lifelines, and power cables are all potential hazards. Keep them out of the way as much as possible. Stair pans present a common hazard. The stairs need to be filled as soon as possible. Lines and cables need to be kept out of the stairways if possible. Remember, a slip or trip can turn out to be more than just falling to the surface of the level you're walking on. Depending on the situation, you could fall a long way.